Hi everyone, it's Taehyung. How have you been? I really missed you. It's been a while since I've sat down like this just to talk, just to share what's been on my mind. Sometimes there are things that I don't get to say on stage or in interviews, but tonight I wanted to speak from my heart. I've been thinking a lot about love, what it means, how it changes us, how it connects us, and maybe it's time I tell you the story of what really happened the moment I finally said, I love you. I've always believed that there are moments in life when silence speaks louder than words. And sometimes, when you finally say something that's been living quietly inside your chest for years, the world doesn't need to cheer, it just listens. When I finally said, I love you, it wasn't on a stage. There were no flashing lights, no microphones, no perfectly timed confetti falling from the ceiling. It was just me, a quiet night. My voice shaking a little, not because I was nervous, but because I finally meant every word. I know it sounds strange coming from me, someone who's been saying I love you to fans for over a decade, but this time it felt different. This time it wasn't a phrase rehearsed in interviews or a caption at the end of a concert. It was real, it was raw, and maybe it was the first time in my life that I said it with no walls left to hide behind. People see me as V, the artist, the performer, the one with the deep voice and mysterious smile, but behind all that, I'm just Taehyung, a son, a friend, a man trying to understand what love really means. I've spent years giving love away through songs and smiles, but I never stopped to ask myself, have I ever actually loved fully and honestly? The truth is, I was afraid of that word, love. When you grow up under the lights, every emotion becomes public property. Every smile, every tear, every mistake, someone somewhere is recording it, analyzing it, judging it. I learned to protect myself, to smile when I didn't feel like it, to laugh when I was tired, to say, I'm okay when I wasn't, because that's what people expected from me. But that night, the night I finally said those three words, there was no audience. Just quiet air and my heart beating too loud. I remember sitting there, my hands resting on my knees, thinking about everything that brought me here. The years, the pressure, the love from fans, the sacrifices from my family, the brothers I've shared my life with BTS. For so long, I thought saying I love you had to be perfect. It had to be romantic, cinematic, like something from a movie. But I was wrong. Love isn't about the scene, it's about the honesty behind it. When I said it, I wasn't talking to one person. It wasn't for a girlfriend, a fan, or even for the camera. I was talking to myself, to the version of me that stayed quiet when I should have spoken. To the boy who once stood in a small room in Daegu, dreaming of music, scared that no one would ever understand him. I wanted to tell him, you did well. You can rest now. I love you. Sometimes love isn't loud. It's not a scream or a confession. Sometimes it's a whisper between you and the parts of yourself you try to forget. People always ask me, Taehyung, how do you stay so calm, so composed? But if you could hear the noise inside my mind, you'd know calm doesn't mean peace. Sometimes calm means control. It means holding back emotions because you're scared of what will happen if you let them spill. When we were touring the world, singing to thousands of people, I would stand on stage, look out at the sea of purple lights, and feel a rush of warmth that words could never describe. It was love, but it was also overwhelming. I'd tell the fans, I purple you, because that was the safest way I knew to say I love you without crossing the line between artist and fan. But deep inside, there was always this quiet ache, a voice saying, when will you say it for real? It's not that I didn't mean it before. I did. Every I love you to ARMY was sincere. But there's a difference between loving someone and allowing yourself to be loved. For a long time, I didn't think I deserved love that wasn't tied to performance love, that didn't depend on a stage, an album, or a smile. You know, when people call you perfect long enough, you start to fear imperfection. You start to believe that if they ever saw the real you, the one who gets lonely, angry, confused, they'd walk away. And that fear becomes your cage. I think that's why, for years, I avoided saying I love you in a way that made me vulnerable. Because love, real love, isn't about being adored, it's about being seen. And being seen, that's terrifying. I remember the first time I broke down during a rehearsal. I was exhausted, physically, emotionally. The guys were there: Jungkook, Jimin, Namjoon-hyung, Hobi-hyung, Yoongi-hyung, Jin-hyung. They didn't say anything. They just sat with me. No one tried to cheer me up or tell me to be strong. They just stayed. That's when I learned something about love. Sometimes love isn't in words, it's in presence, in silence. So when I finally said I love you, maybe it wasn't just my voice, maybe it was all those quiet moments combined into one. Every hug from my mom, every time ARMY sang our lyrics back to us, every night I couldn't sleep because I was overthinking everything. It all built up to that moment. People think idols are fearless, but I've never met a single artist who isn't afraid of losing themselves, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of not being enough. I'm no different. I've just learned how to turn fear into melody. When I recorded Love Me Again, I remember closing my eyes and feeling the ache in every note. That song wasn't just about romance, it was about yearning, the wish to be understood, to be loved not as V but as Taehyung. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if I could talk to my younger self again. I'd tell him, don't rush to prove yourself. The world will see you when you're ready. Just love quietly, and one day your love will be loud enough to fill the world. That's what it felt like that night. Like all the noise around me faded, and all that was left was the heartbeat I'd ignored for so long. It's funny, the world fell silent, but inside me everything got louder. My memories, my regrets, my gratitude. I realized that love isn't something you say when everything is perfect. It's something you say when you finally stop pretending. I don't know if the world needed to hear it that night, but I needed to. Sometimes I wonder how many of us walk through life waiting for permission to love, waiting for the right person, the right time, the right version of ourselves. But love doesn't wait. It grows quietly, even in fear. When I said, I love you, I wasn't announcing it to anyone. I was releasing it, letting it go into the universe to whoever needed to feel it, to whoever forgot that they were loved. Maybe that's what love really is. Not ownership, but release. After that night, something inside me changed. The air felt lighter. The pressure I used to carry around my shoulders, the need to always be perfect, it loosened a bit. Because once you've said the truth out loud, you stop running from it. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. But I know this: the world doesn't fall silent because it's shocked. It falls silent because for a brief moment it understands you. That night, I felt understood, not by the cameras or the crowd, but by myself. And that felt like love. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what those words had done to me. It was like a door I never knew existed had quietly opened inside my heart, and through it, all these memories began to walk back. In moments I had buried under years of noise, schedules, cameras, and expectations. The morning after I woke up before the Sunday, the city outside was still asleep. I made coffee, opened the window, and just stood there, listening to the sound of nothing. You know, I've lived in so many cities, stayed in countless hotels, performed in arenas around the world, but silence has always felt like the most foreign place to me. Maybe because it's the only place where I can hide. As I stood there, the scent of coffee mixing with the cold air, I whispered again, I love you. This time, I didn't need an audience. I didn't need to record it or write it down. It was just me and my voice echoing softly into the morning. That's when I realized something. All my life, I thought love had to be proven, that I had to earn it through success, through perfection, through making people proud. But love doesn't work like that. You don't earn it, you allow it. It's strange, isn't it? How we spend years learning how to sing, how to speak, how to perform, but no one teaches us how to be loved. When I joined BTS, I was just a kid from Daegu with dreams too big for my own hands. I remember our first dorm, it was small, messy, loud, and full of laughter. We didn't have much, but we had each other. We were brothers before the world ever called us idols. We didn't say I love you out loud back then. But we showed it through shared meals, through late night talks, through just existing together in the same space. Nam Jun-hyung used to write lyrics even when he was half asleep. Yoon Gi-hyung would quietly cook or just sit in silence while the rest of us talked nonsense. Jin-hyung always made sure we laughed before sleeping. Jae-hyung brought light into rooms that felt too heavy. Jimin, he always cared with his whole heart, even when he didn't have to. And Jungkook, he was just this pure energy, chasing perfection but forgetting he already was it. I think back on those nights a lot. We were young, hungry, and scared. But looking back now, I realize that was love too. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind that holds you up when you're too tired to stand. When we started to see success, I felt happy, of course, but also lost. The more people knew V, the more I felt like Taehyung was fading. The applause got louder, but my thoughts got quieter. I wondered if the world would still love me if I ever stopped performing. If I took off the smile, if I showed them the parts that hurt. That's why saying I love you out loud that night was such a turning point for me, because it wasn't about romance, it was about reunion with myself, with the boy who once played guitar under a single light, who dreamed about love in songs before he even understood what it meant. Sometimes people ask Taehyung, how do you write songs that feel so emotional? I think it's because I write from emptiness, not fullness. I write when I miss something, not when I have it. Because longing, that's what gives meaning to love. It's what reminds you that love isn't just found, it's felt. When I told my mom about that night, she didn't say much. She just smiled. Moms have this way of understanding without needing details. She said, "You've always been full of love, Tai. You just had to stop hiding it." Her words stayed with me. Maybe we all hide our love in different ways, behind work, behind strength, behind laughter. But at some point, you realize that love doesn't weaken you, it frees you. I remember one evening in Paris. The air smelled like rain and perfume, and the lights from the sand danced across the river like they were alive. I was walking alone, my face hidden under a cap, just watching people, live couples laughing, friends hugging, kids chasing pigeons. None of them knew who I was. For once, I didn't have to be anyone. And in that moment, I felt something so pure, a kind of love that had nothing to do with being seen. It was just being part of the world quietly. I think that's what I want from love now. Not fireworks, not perfection, just peace. After that night, I began to speak differently, not in interviews, not on stage, but with the people I care about. I started saying I love you more often, not because I wanted to hear it back, but because I wanted to remind myself that love is safe now. It's not something to hide behind lyrics or gestures anymore. Sometimes Jimin laughs when I say it. He'll tease me and go, "Since when did you get so soft?" And I'll just smile because he doesn't know how long it took me to be able to say those words without feeling afraid. There's something healing about saying I love you without expectation. When you stop saying it to get something in return, that's when it becomes real. Even with fans, I think they can tell when love is genuine. Armies have given us so much, and I used to worry that no matter what I did, I could never give enough back. But I understand now love isn't about balance, it's about connection. It's about sharing a moment, even if it's brief, and knowing it was real. When we perform, and I look out into the crowd, thousands of purple lights waving, I feel something I can't describe in words. It's not just gratitude, it's recognition. Like all our hearts are beating in rhythm for a few seconds, saying what words can't. That's love too. And you know what's funny? After I said I love you that night, some people told me they cried. Others said they smiled. But for me, it wasn't a dramatic confession. It was quiet, it was personal. It wasn't meant to make anyone cry. It was meant to remind myself that I'm still capable of feeling deeply even after all these years in the spotlight. Sometimes I worry that fame changes the way people receive love, that it turns something pure into something performative. But I try to stay close to the truth, to the things that make me human. Family dinners, long drives, nights with friends where we talk about nothing important but somehow everything that matters. There was a night not long ago when Jungkook called me just to say he missed hanging out. We talked for an hour about food, life, random things. And when we hung up, he said, "Love you, Hyung." I froze for a second, not because it was unusual, but because it reminded me how far we've all come. We used to be too shy to say it. Now it comes naturally. Maybe that's what growing up means. Learning how to say what you used to keep inside. When I think about all of it, the music, the love, the silence, the noise, I realize that I love you isn't a destination. It's a journey of learning how to let yourself feel again. And maybe that's why, after I said it, I didn't feel the need to explain it. Because love doesn't always need a story. Sometimes it just needs space to exist. The world fell silent that night, not because of me, but because for once I stopped trying to be someone and just was. When I started thinking about love seriously, I realized how much of my life had been spent giving love to the world, but not always receiving it in the same way. I gave it through my songs, my smiles, my performances, my messages to fans. Every time I stood on stage and looked out into the crowd, I could feel thousands of hearts beating with mine. It was beautiful, but also overwhelming. I wonder if they loved the real me or the image of me that they saw. That question followed me for years. It's strange how you can be surrounded by love and still feel a kind of loneliness that no noise can hide. During the Love Yourself era, I thought a lot about that phrase. It was more than just an album concept. It was something I had to learn myself. To love myself meant accepting that I could love others deeply without losing who I am. And that took time, it took silence, it took mistakes. There was one night after a show, I remember sitting in my hotel room, still wearing the makeup, the stage lights still echoing in my mind. My phone kept buzzing with messages, notifications, fans sharing moments from the concert. But in that quiet room, I suddenly felt like the world had gone still. I thought about someone I had been close to, someone who had always supported me quietly, even when I wasn't at my best. And in that moment, the words, I love you, felt like a confession I had been holding back for years, not just to that person, but to everyone who had ever believed in me. But love, for me, has never been simple. It's always been connected to fear, fear of being misunderstood, of crossing lines that fame draws around you, of losing the safe distance that being an idol creates. Sometimes I'd write lyrics that I couldn't release because they felt too real, too raw. Those were my secret letters to people I could never name, to the world I loved but couldn't always explain myself to. When I finally said, I love you, I didn't say it because it was easy. I said it because it was true. And truth always carries a kind of weight that changes everything around you. I remember the reaction silence. Not because people didn't understand, but because they did. It was like the world had been waiting for that moment, for that honesty. And in that silence, I felt something pure. No cameras, no noise, just connection. I've learned that saying I love you doesn't always mean romantic love. Sometimes it means thank you for staying with me. Sometimes it means I see you. Sometimes it means I'm healing. The older I get, the more I understand that love is not one thing. It's a language with infinite meanings depending on who's listening. I remember the next day, during rehearsal, one of the members teased me about it. So, you finally said it, huh? They laughed, but there was warmth in their eyes. Because they understood they've been through the same journey. We've all learned to love and be loved while carrying the weight of so many hearts. It's both a blessing and a burden, but it's what makes life feel real. Sometimes fans send me letters saying, "You don't know me, but I love you." And I want to say back, maybe I do know you in a way. Because through your words, I can feel your dreams, your pain, your warmth. That's the magic of connection. It goes beyond faces, beyond distance, beyond languages. There was a time when I was afraid of vulnerability. I used to hide behind humor, behind fashion, behind perfectly posed photos. I thought if I showed too much of myself, I'd lose something. But it's the opposite. Being honest makes you whole. I think that's what love taught me. That even if you're imperfect, you're still worthy of being seen. Love isn't a destination. It's not something you arrive at and stay. It's a journey like breathing, like music. It flows, it changes, it teaches. And maybe that's why I keep writing songs, why I keep speaking to you, because every time I share something real, I feel a little closer to understanding what love really means. When I said I love you, it wasn't just for one person. It was for everyone who has ever made me feel human. For my family, for my members, for ARMY, for the quiet parts of myself that I used to ignore. It was a moment of truth, one that reminded me why I do what I do. I still think about that night sometimes, how the silence after those words wasn't empty, but full, full of memories, full of faces, full of everything I've ever cared about. And that's when I realized maybe the most powerful sound in the world isn't applause. Maybe it's the silence that follows when love finally finds its voice. After that night, things inside me started to shift quietly. I didn't realize it at first, but something in me had softened. It's like when winter starts to fade and the air feels a little less cold. You can't see the change, but you can feel it. That's what happened to me. I began to notice things I used to overlook: the way the morning light fell through my window, the sound of laughter in the practice room, the way a single text from a friend could brighten an entire day. Before, I used to move through life so fast, always chasing perfection, always trying to meet expectations. But after saying those words, "I love you," it's like I gave myself permission to just be, to exist without constantly proving something. I realized how often I used to hide my feelings behind art. When I couldn't say what I felt, I'd turn it into a melody, a lyric, a photograph. I thought that was enough. But I've learned that art is just the beginning, it's a doorway, not the destination. The real connection happens when you step beyond it, when you speak from your heart without filters. That's what I wanted that moment to be. There's something beautiful about vulnerability. It's scary, yes, but it's also freeing. For so long, I thought being strong meant holding everything inside. But strength isn't about silence, it's about honesty. It's being brave enough to say, "This is who I am," even when you're trembling. And I've learned that people don't love you because you're perfect, they love you because you're real. I remember one message from a fan that really stayed with me. She wrote, "When you said I love you, I finally believed that love could be quiet too." That touched me deeply because that's exactly what I felt, that love doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a soft whisper that changes everything. I started thinking about all the people I've met on this journey, those who stayed, those who left, those who shaped me in ways they'll never know. Some taught me patience, some taught me forgiveness, and some taught me that not every story needs an ending to be meaningful. And through all of it, love was the common thread weaving moments together even when I didn't realize it. When I said I love you, it wasn't planned. It just came out naturally like breathing. But maybe that's why it meant so much. It wasn't for the cameras, it wasn't a performance, it was real. And I think the world felt that. Since then, people often ask me if I regret being that open. The truth is no, because for the first time, I didn't feel like an idol. I felt like a person talking to people. That's something fame can never take away from you, the ability to be human. Love has changed the way I look at everything. Even pain feels different now. I used to think pain meant weakness, but it doesn't. Pain is just love's shadow proof that something mattered. And once you understand that, you stop running from it. You start embracing it as part of who you are. When I think about the future, I don't picture fame or success. I picture peace. I want to live in a world where I can say, I love you without fear to my family, my friends, my fans, and to myself. Because love is the only thing that grows the more you give it away. Sometimes during concerts, I look out at the crowd and see thousands of purple lights and it hits me. That color has become our language. It's more than a symbol, it's a promise. I purple you isn't just words, it's trust, loyalty, warmth, and care. It's our way of saying I love you without needing to say it out loud. And maybe that's why it feels eternal. After that night, I wrote a few lines in my journal. Love is quiet, but it echoes forever. It's simple, but it's true. I think I'll always carry that with me. There's something else I've learned. Love doesn't need to be understood by everyone, it just needs to be felt. Some people will interpret your words, your actions, your heart differently. That's okay. As long as it's honest, it will reach who it's meant to reach. I've also realized how much courage it takes to love in a world that often misunderstands it. People might judge, twist, or question it, but real love doesn't need to defend itself. It just is. And maybe that's the lesson I needed to learn before I could say those words out loud. Even now, when I think about that moment, the silence that followed, the warmth that lingered it reminds me that love is the one thing that truly connects us all. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what language you speak. Love makes us human. So, yes, that night when I finally said I love you, the world went silent. But inside that silence, there was life, there was peace, there was understanding. And I think in that quiet space, something beautiful began. There are moments in life that stay with you forever, not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they changed something deep inside you. That night, when I finally said, I love you, was one of those moments. It wasn't just a sentence, it was a doorway. And once I walked through it, I couldn't go back to being the same person. For a long time, I used to measure love by its size, how big it felt, how strong it sounded, but now I see it differently. Love isn't about the noise it makes, it's about the quiet it leaves behind. It's in the calm that follows after a storm of emotions. It's in the way you breathe easier when you finally said what's been living inside your heart for too long. After that night, I started noticing how my relationships changed not just with others, but with myself. I began to speak more honestly, even when it felt uncomfortable. I learned that being open doesn't mean being weak, it means being real. There's power in saying what you mean, even if your voice shakes a little. When I said, I love you, I didn't expect it to travel so far, but somehow it did. The next day, I saw clips, articles, messages from fans all around the world. Some said they cried. Some said they smiled. Some said they finally understood why I always talk about love as something we grow into. I didn't know how to respond at first. I just sat there, reading everything, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and disbelief. You see, fame makes things louder, but not necessarily clearer. Sometimes people hear what you say, but they don't always understand what you mean. But this time, I think they did. Because the truth behind those three words was simple. It was gratitude. It was me saying, "Thank you for letting me be myself." During rehearsals, a few days later, one of the staff came up to me quietly and said, "That was brave, Taehyung." And I smiled, but I didn't feel brave. I just felt honest. Sometimes honesty is the hardest thing in the world, especially when you've spent years protecting yourself behind layers of image and expectation. But once you cross that line, once you let yourself be seen as you are, it's like breathing fresh air after holding your breath for too long. There's something pure about love when it's not trying to prove anything. I think that's what made that moment special. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't perfect, and it wasn't meant to be viral. It was just real. Since then, I've started to think more about the kind of love I want to give to the world, not just through words, but through presence. Being there when people need comfort. Listening, smiling at strangers. Writing songs that speak what others can't put into words. Maybe that's the truest form of "I love you," not just saying it, but living it. I often think about how love has shaped my journey with ARMY. From the beginning, it's always been there not just as support, but as a kind of friendship that feels sacred. When I read the letters, the art, the stories fans share, I see reflections of myself in them. People who are growing, hurting, healing, dreaming. It reminds me that love isn't just something we give, it's something we build together, little by little, moment by moment. There are days when I still struggle, days when the pressure feels heavy, when I question if I'm doing enough, if I'm being enough. But on those days, I think about the silence that came after "I love you." I remember how full it felt. And I realized that even when everything feels uncertain, love remains constant. One night, not long after that moment, I went for a drive. The city was quiet, the streets almost empty. I rolled the window down and let the air hit my face. There was a song playing softly, not one of mine, just something random on the radio. But the lyrics hit me. Love doesn't need to shout to be heard. I smiled because it felt like the universe was reminding me that I didn't need to do more. I just needed to be. I think that's what love has taught me, to slow down, to breathe, to notice the little things that make life feel alive. The sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of someone who just gets you. Those are the real miracles. And maybe that's the real reason the world went silent that night. Because for once, we all felt the same thing. Not noise, not chaos, but peace. A rare kind of peace that only love can bring. Thank you for listening until the end. Sometimes it's not easy to open up, but knowing that you're here, it makes everything feel a little lighter. I hope when you hear my words, you can also think about your own kind of love, the quiet ones, the brave ones, the love that asks for nothing but stays anyway. I've learned that love isn't about how loud you say it, but how deeply you mean it. And to everyone who's been by my side through every season of my life, I love you.